There's a hierarchy in every room you walk into, whether you're aware of it or not. Some people stand out immediately, while others disappear the second they arrive. And here's the brutal truth. It's not because they're quiet. It's not because they're humble. It's because their habits radiate one message so clearly that even the powerful can smell it: irrelevance. Machiavelli never wrote for the masses. He wasn't trying to hand out comfort to ordinary men. He wrote for rulers, for those who understood that visibility isn't about being loud, it's about being undeniable. And when you carry certain habits, you don't just fade into the background. You make yourself invisible to opportunity, to respect, to power itself. Let's start with the first invisible habit. You walk into rooms with your energy collapsed inward. The powerful expand when they enter a space. Their awareness spreads. They scan, they assess, they dominate, sometimes without saying a single word. Their presence is felt before it's spoken. But the weak, they fold in on themselves. Their shoulders droop. Their eyes drop to the floor. Their energy shrinks as though they're apologizing for existing. And here's what psychology tells us. People subconsciously read body language faster than they process words. A man who enters a room inward, hesitant, shrunken, that man is dismissed before anyone even knows his name. He isn't evaluated. He isn't even seen. Because if you don't project that you value your own presence, why would anyone else bother valuing it? Appearances are the first weapon of influence. Disappear upon entry, and you've already destroyed yourself. No rival even needed to touch you. The first test of power is how you carry yourself the moment the door opens. Your shoulders should lead. Your eyes should scan deliberately, not frantically. Your energy should project outward as if you expect to be noticed. That isn't arrogance, it's survival. The second invisible habit is speaking with apology baked into your tone. It doesn't matter how strong your words are. If your delivery rises into a question, if you trail off softly, if you drown sentences in filler like or sorry, you've already lost. Powerful people don't hear the content of what you're saying. They hear the confession in your tone. I don't fully believe what I'm saying, and I'm asking for your approval to exist here. To Machiavelli, speech was not small talk. It was a weapon. Words are meant to cut, to clarify, to command. They're not meant to wobble around searching for consensus. That's why your tone must be measured, intentional, final. Slow, calm, low, less words, more weight. The silence between your sentences should carry more gravity than someone else's nervous chatter. Because here's a psychological fact. People lean in when they feel you're not desperate to be heard. They tune out the second they sense you're pleading for their attention. The third invisible habit is one most people never question: laughing too easily. Laughter is not harmless. Laughter is a signal. It says, I agree, I submit, I am safe. But to the Machiavellian mind, the first to laugh is the first to surrender, especially when it isn't funny, especially when the laughter is nervous, misplaced, or directed at a subtle insult. This is why powerful people test you. They'll throw a sarcastic remark, a risky joke, maybe even something borderline disrespectful. They're not watching to see if you're offended. They're watching to see if you laugh. And when you do, when you smirk just to keep things smooth, you've marked yourself. From that point forward, you will never be seen as their equal. Think about it. When someone makes a cutting remark and you laugh along, what you've told them is I'd rather be accepted than respected. And once they know that, you can't recover. so don't laugh to belong. If it's disrespectful, don't grin. Don't smirk. Go still. Let silence hang heavy in the air. Stillness unsettles people. And when they can't predict how you'll respond, they can't control you. That's the seed of power. The fourth invisible habit, over-explaining simple things. You're asked a question. You answer. But then, you keep talking. You add disclaimers, backstory, extra examples nobody asked for. Not because they need clarity, but because you need to justify your right to speak. That's insecurity disguised as communication. And here's the paradox. The more you explain, the less credible you sound. Neuroscience has proven this. Excessive detail doesn't increase belief, it decreases it. Because if you truly believed your words were enough, you wouldn't keep padding them. Machiavelli's wisdom fits perfectly here. The more you explain, the more control you surrender. Speak like your time is expensive. Answer, then stop. Let silence do the heavy lifting. If they want more, let them ask. Never assume they do. Because when you speak less, your words become scarce, and scarcity creates value. These habits aren't random quirks. They're subconscious leaks, signals powerful people read in seconds. And here's the dangerous part. You don't get second chances. By the time you've realized you're over-explaining, by the time you've corrected your nervous laugh, the room has already moved on. You've been filtered out of their perception. Machiavelli understood something most people never will. Every environment is a battlefield, not with swords, but with posture, with tone, with presence, with silence. And if you fail to weaponize those things, you're dismissed before your ideas even reach their ears. But we're not finished yet. These first 4 habits only scratch the surface. There are more, and they cut deeper. Each one explains why you've been overlooked, underestimated, and forgotten in rooms that could have altered your life forever. Because the truth is, you were never rejected. You were invisible. And it was your own habits that erased you. The tragedy of invisibility is that it doesn't come from weakness of character. It comes from the habits you've practiced for years without even realizing it. Every suppressed opinion, every instinct you swallowed, every time you nodded when you should have walked away. You were sculpting yourself into someone forgettable. The powerful aren't blind. They don't overlook you by accident. They filter. They scan the room. And in seconds, they cut out anyone radiating compliance, apology, or the faint scent of insecurity. They don't do this because they're cruel. They do it because their time is scarce, and power gravitates only toward those who signal power back. This brings us to the 5th invisible habit, waiting to be included. You sit at the table, but you don't speak unless someone calls on you. You hover at the edges of conversations, hoping someone waves you in. You wait for permission, professionally, socially, emotionally. And whether you realize it or not, this reveals the deadliest trait Machiavelli warned against: dependence on others to validate your place. When you wait to be included, you admit silently, "I'm not sure I belong here. Can someone else confirm it for me?" And powerful people never waste time validating someone else's worth. They're looking for those who claim their seat without hesitation. This doesn't mean barging in, being arrogant, or forcing attention. It means inserting yourself decisively. Because value doesn't knock politely. Value walks in. Speak up without being asked. Add weight to the conversation, then let silence echo. The ones who hesitate are forgotten. The ones who speak once with clarity are remembered. The 6th invisible habit is apologizing for your standards. your preferences, your boundaries, your non-negotiables. Those aren't weaknesses. They are the architecture of your presence. Yet most people treat them as fragile things that must be explained or softened the moment they're questioned. You say no, but then you explain. You backtrack. You soften. And in doing so, you tell the world your standards are negotiable. Machiavelli understood something modern psychology has confirmed. Standards are not about morality. They're about power calibration. The moment you apologize for them, they lose their gravity. The most powerful men and women don't explain why their boundaries exist. They deliver them calmly, silently, and that silence transforms them into law. And law commands respect, not permission. Say no without flinching. Decline without explanation. Walk away without broadcasting pain. Because the second your standards stop needing defense, they start radiating authority. The seventh invisible habit is one people confuse for charm: overusing praise. You think you're building connection when you flood others with compliments? Nice job. That's amazing. I love that. But Machiavelli would laugh. Praise, when it's constant, turns into counterfeit currency. It loses all weight. And worse, it signals something far more dangerous: the need to be liked. Powerful people hear excessive praise and instantly decode the subtext. He needs me. He wants my approval. He can be controlled. This doesn't mean you withhold admiration entirely. It means you use it like a rare spice: specific, delayed, costly. When you finally give praise, it lands as a reward, not as background noise. And rewards shape behavior far more than desperate validation ever could. The eighth invisible habit: mirroring too much. You adjust your tone to theirs. You copy their slang. You mirror their gestures. You match their rhythm. You think you're building rapport, but what you're actually doing is erasing yourself. Because the more you bend to reflect someone else, the blurrier your own identity becomes. Social psychology calls this self-monitoring. Yes, some degree of adaptation is natural. But when it becomes excessive, it signals desperation. You're broadcasting, "I'll become whatever you need me to be. Just don't reject me." And nothing destroys respect faster. The powerful respect solidity. They respect those who remain themselves even in difference. Keep your natural tone, even if it clashes. Don't mirror volume or gestures just to smooth things over. Let tension exist, because tension is not danger, it's signal. Only those with nothing to prove can stay unmoved in the presence of difference. And that stillness, that refusal to bend, creates curiosity. And curiosity is power. The ninth invisible habit is subtle but devastating: showing gratitude first. Gratitude is a beautiful thing, but timing determines whether it elevates you or reduces you. If you thank someone before you've established presence, you shrink yourself. Phrases like, "Thanks for having me," or "Thank you for your time," sound polite. But to a Machiavellian ear, they're confessions. This interaction benefits me more than it benefits you. I'm the subordinate here. That imbalance stays stamped on the encounter forever. Gratitude must be delayed. Establish parity first. Speak as if the interaction is mutually beneficial. Then, and only then, offer thanks. Not as a plea, but as a recognition between equals. Because when you crawl into a room thanking people for allowing you inside, you've already told them you don't belong. And power does not respect what begged to enter. It respects what walked in with its head held high. Do you see the pattern yet? These habits don't scream weakness, they whisper it. They're micro-surrenders, subconscious leaks of insecurity. And the powerful don't even need to analyze them consciously. They just feel it. The tragedy is not that you've been rejected. The tragedy is that you've been forgotten. You've blended so seamlessly into the background that the room never even registered you. And here's the paradox. When power forgets you, so does opportunity. So does influence. So does the world. But when you strip these habits away, something happens. The air around you thickens. People pause before speaking to you. Their tone shifts. They ask your opinion differently. Not because you demanded respect, but because you subtracted every habit that once made you ignorable. What's left is presence. And presence is a force no powerful person can afford to overlook. Presence isn't built by addition. It's built by subtraction. Every habit you remove sharpens your edges. Every silence you hold stretches your gravity. And that brings us to the deepest layers of invisibility, the ones most people never notice in themselves. The 10th invisible habit is seeking emotional safety in every interaction. You walk into a room, and instead of owning your space, you immediately start scanning for approval. Friendly eyes, nods of validation. You soften your words mid-sentence to keep everyone comfortable. You check their reactions before finishing your thought. In short, you're addicted to smoothness. But here's the brutal psychological truth. He who fears conflict will always serve the one who doesn't. The powerful are not addicted to harmony. They don't flinch at tension. They enter rooms and let discomfort breathe. They challenge. They provoke. They allow silence to stretch until others squirm. Why? Because tension is leverage. Tension separates leaders from followers. If you're constantly managing other people's comfort, you become the janitor of the emotional atmosphere, always cleaning up the mess, never creating it. But the Machiavellian mind understands that respect grows in discomfort, not in safety. Let your words land heavy. Don't soften them because someone shifts in their chair. Don't rush to smooth the silence when your statement unsettles the room. Stillness in chaos makes you magnetic. People respect those who can sit calmly in the fire because it signals something primal. I cannot be moved. The 11th invisible habit is avoiding physical space. You fold your arms. You cross your legs. You shrink into corners. You keep your hands small, your movements tight, your gestures minimized. And you tell yourself it's humility. But your body is saying something else entirely. I'm not a threat. Don't pay attention to me. Machiavelli would call this submission through posture. And neuroscience backs it. The body doesn't just reflect the mind, it trains the mind. When you collapse into yourself physically, your confidence follows. The powerful don't do this. They occupy space without apology, shoulders squared, chin level, hands that gesture with calm precision. They don't fidget when eyes turn toward them. They let attention rest on them as if it were natural. And it becomes natural because their body commands the environment before their words ever do. The man who takes no space commands no mind. Sit like you belong. Move like you belong. Anchor yourself in the room so deeply that others unconsciously revolve around you. The 12th invisible habit is over-identifying with good intentions. This is brutal because most people build their self-image around their good heart. They say, I didn't mean to sound insecure, I meant well. They think intentions will save them. But Machiavelli and life are unforgiving here. Intentions are invisible. Signals are everything. Powerful people don't sit around trying to decode your soul. They don't search for the real you beneath your awkward tone or nervous laughter. They respond only to what you project. If what you project is neediness, apology, or weakness, then in their eyes, that's who you are. Stop believing your kindness will speak for itself. It won't. Stop believing people will recognize your potential beneath the signals you send. They won't. Influence isn't about what you meant. It's about what you signaled. Adjust your behavior, not just your intentions, because those who rise aren't necessarily the most well-intentioned. They're the ones whose presence commands interpretation. The 13th and final invisible habit cuts to the bone. Treating influence like something to be earned. You believe influence is a reward for proving yourself, for waiting your turn, for working hard until someone finally says, "Now, you're ready." That is the greatest lie you've ever swallowed. Machiavelli understood the truth. Influence is never earned. It's assumed. Those who carry power don't walk into rooms asking to be noticed. They don't wait for someone else to anoint them. They move as though their presence already matters. And because they carry themselves that way, the room bends to that reality. Not out of kindness, but out of instinct. Stop thinking your work speaks for itself. It doesn't. Stop waiting for validation before acting like you matter. Validation comes after you've moved, as though you already did. The posture of influence isn't loud or arrogant. It's anchored, unshakable, certain. And once you start moving like someone undeniable, people will watch you before they know why. That's when you've become visible, not because you begged for attention, but because ignoring you suddenly feels dangerous. Now, you see the full architecture of invisibility. 13 subtle habits. 13 ways you've quietly erased yourself in rooms that could have changed your life. And the tragedy, you didn't even realize you were doing it. You weren't weak. You were conditioned. Conditioned to be polite, to blend in, to avoid conflict, to smooth edges, to soften presence. Society calls it humility. But Machiavelli would call it what it really is, self-erasure. You weren't born invisible. You trained yourself into invisibility, and that training can be undone. So what do you do now? Now that you've seen the truth? The answer isn't to become louder, flashier, or more aggressive. That's what the insecure do when they first realize they've been invisible. They overcorrect. They force presence. They fake dominance. And in doing so, they expose their weakness even more. Real presence is not about volume. It's about weight. Think of a mountain. It doesn't shout. It doesn't move. It simply exists, and everything around it adjusts. That is what you must become. Not louder, but heavier. Not faster, but steadier. Not desperate for attention, but impossible to ignore. To dismantle your invisibility, you must reverse the habits. Stop filling silences. Hold them. Stop seeking safety. Sit calmly in tension. Stop shrinking your body. Expand into space. Stop believing intentions matter. Signal strength instead. Stop waiting for permission. Move as though you already belong. Presence is trained in stillness. It's forged in restraint. It's sharpened in discomfort. And here's the Machiavellian secret no one tells you. People are desperate to follow those who don't flinch. Most humans are addicted to comfort, and they unconsciously look for anchors. Someone whose very being says, "I cannot be moved." If you become that person, you won't just be noticed. You'll be unavoidable. The moment you stop erasing yourself, is the moment the world begins to revolve differently around you, and it won't feel like a performance. It won't feel like an act. It will feel like the natural gravity you had all along, finally revealed. So ask yourself, how many more years will you spend apologizing for your presence? How many more rooms will you enter like a ghost, waiting for permission to exist? The powerful don't wait. They claim, they anchor, they command. And if you dare to shed the habits of invisibility, if you begin to move as though your presence is already undeniable, then you will discover the deepest truth of all. It was never about becoming someone else. It was about removing the disguises that kept you small. You are not invisible. You are simply hiding, and it's time to stop.